We are 10 toes down here in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the Indiana Convention Center. My guy, Jordan Reid from ESPN, is here. And Jordan, we talked on KFAN earlier. That wasn't recorded on video. So for fans that understand the Vikings' position at 11, understanding that you were a former quarterback, I feel like the audience automatically tunes into you because you know how the Vikings should, I guess, attack that position when it comes to addressing the Kirk situation. What are your thoughts on where the Vikings stand with Kirk Cousins?
Well, I think it's a really interesting situation just because you've had a quarterback that has been successful for you in the regular season. But the big decision with Kirk is, what are the playoff implications with Kirk? Just because he has one playoff win in 6 years, but he's been one of the best players under center for you in the past 20 or so years. So do you want to keep that type of stability with Kirk Cousins, or do you want to try something new, more so with a young type of quarterback? I think that's the big decision that they have to make.
Understanding that decision, a question that I asked Kwesi is, when you look at the backup quarterback situation, how do you address that, or how do you value that when it comes to this year's draft class, if Kirk is the quarterback?
Well, I think that's where you plug your young quarterback in, whether you take one at 11 or somewhere in the mid-rounds. I think they have to do a better job of addressing backup quarterback just because Nick Mullins is probably going to be gone. Jaron Hall is more so of a developmental project. So do you put that young quarterback behind Kirk Cousins, assuming they bring him back?
Is there a quarterback that, in your opinion, that could be a young guy, kind of fits the mold of what Kevin O'Connell does, always, looking outside of the hash marks, throwing the ball downfield, that fits what KOC wants to do in Minnesota?
Well, I think there's two guys, if you're looking more so in the mid-rounds. Spencer Rattler of South Carolina, who's done a really good job over the past 2 seasons of really reinventing himself. We're talking about a player that was the top-ranked player in the country coming into Oklahoma, and then he transfers to South Carolina, and he's done a really good job. From everybody that I've talked to, he goes down at the Senior Bowl. He wins MVP of the practices during the week, and then also MVP of the game. So he's continued to check those boxes throughout the pre-draft process. And then the other is Michael Pratt of Tulane, who had a lot of excitement and a lot of buzz coming into the year. He was a little bit banged up throughout the season, but you see a lot of those translatable traits with him.
I mean, you just talked about the transfer portal guys going to different schools. Like, how do you weigh all of that when looking at the modern-day quarterback?
Well, I think you just have to look at the situation for each guy and understand why they transferred. Was it opportunity? Was it something that happened with the coaches, or a combination of both? So I think it's really a case-by-case basis. You just really have to dive into the prospect, and that's why we're here. You get to ask these players, why did you transfer, or why do you leave?
Looking at the Vikings' defensive side of the ball, Brian Flores came in this past year. There were expectations for Brian Flores, but he far exceeded it. Just looking at the numbers, from run defense being top 5. I mean, just the guys that he was able to put in positions to be able to be successful. When you look at that and you look at this draft class, what type of guy, not talking player, but what type of guy fits this Brian Flores scheme after year 1?
Well, 2 words come to mind: explosive and versatile. That's something that we've seen since Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah has taken over the GM chair. He values explosive athletes. And I think there's plenty of players in this draft class, whether it's a Dallas Turner of Alabama, a Jerzon Newton of Byron Murphy along the interior, and even a Leatu Latu from UCLA. So those type of explosive athletes, just get them in the building, let Brian Flores and his staff really mold those guys. And the mark of a good coach and a good staff is being able to maximize those guys no matter where they were drafted. And we saw the development, whether it was an Ivan Pace, who was an undrafted free agent, Mekhi Blackman of USC, who's going on to be a really good player in his rookie season. So they've been able to get the most out of all these guys.
I mean, understanding that, the conversation comes up of, do you go pass coverage or do you go pass rush? When you blitz as much as the Vikings do, I mean, there was a game this year, Week 3, Los Angeles Chargers, we blitzed 81% of that game.
Wow.
When you see that, what's more important, pass rusher or pass cover?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you, honestly, just because both of them, I think they work hand in hand. Now, for me, it would say pass rush, just because if I'm getting there and I'm affecting the quarterback, that's going to make the back end look a little bit better. So guys like Danielle Hunter and DJ Wanham, we'll see if either one of those guys will be back. Hopefully we'll get both of those guys back. But I think they're going to need a little bit help as far as getting some more depth along the exterior defensive line.
I saw how you light up when you talk. You said hopefully so. A lot of Vikings fans forget, or they may not know, that you grew up a Vikings fan.
I did.
We're both from North Carolina. We've known each other since we were kids. But being a Vikings fan, understanding that this is your favorite team, like what are some of your hopes, and what are some of your hopes that can get the Vikings back into the playoffs and get to that ultimate goal?
So every time I talk about the Vikings, I bring up this stat, and I'm going to bring it up until they do it. So the last time the Vikings have drafted an interior defensive line in the first 2 rounds, 2004, 2005.
Oh, wow.
Kenichi Udeze and then also Erasmus James. So I'm going to speak a defensive end into existence until they take one inside of the first 2 rounds. So I definitely think they need help at defensive end, but also in the secondary, I would like to see them bring in a veteran of some sort, but also take another young corner as well. I think they need help there. And then the interior defensive line, we know they need a lot of help there too.
It's a long week, Jordan. I know you're going to be here all week, but at the same time, we're going to be talking to you. You'll be seeing a lot of Jordan Reid on our platform, so stay tuned to Vikings.com and the rest of our Combine coverage.